So how do we solve quadratic equations? Quadratic equations just means that they have an x squared in them, using a square root. So what we want to do is we want to isolate. What does that word mean? Isolate. Get it alone? Yeah? Okay, so we're going to, number one, isolate or get x squared alone. We're going to do this the same way that we've solved equations back in pre-algebra and back in semester 1. We're going to subtract things off and divide things off. So we're going to get x squared equals or something on the other side. Then, number 2, we are going to take the square root of both sides. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And let's then put a little reminder at the end. We just found out that when I square something, I have to remember that there are two solutions. We have the positive and then also the negative, okay? And so don't forget about that negative. It's not the same thing. You're eliminating half of the answers if you forget about it. So I'm going to write here, don't forget the positive and the negative. Okay. So let's talk about this phrase, the zeros of a function. A couple weeks ago, do you remember we did that dominoes activity? And they used that word roots of an equation, so zeros of a function or roots. Does anybody remember what those are on the graph of the equation? Very good. Okay. And so the zeros of a function or the roots of an equation, it's where the function equals 0, which is the same as the x-intercept. I put a parenthesis around that word or the letter s because sometimes a quadratic can rest on the x-axis and then it would only have one x-intercept. What else happens with parabolas sometimes? Do you remember? They start like if below and open up, then they have two. What if they start above the x-axis and open up? Then they don't have any. Okay, so sometimes things don't have roots or zeros or x-intercepts. In a minute, you're going to see what that looks like when we solve it, okay? All right, so let's use our 3 steps. And we are going to use our calculator. I'm going to simplify the square roots, and then I'm going to approximate them on my calculator. So first off, on this one, to get x squared alone, there is a 3 times x squared, so what should I do? I want just x squared equals.
Divide by 3.
Let's divide both sides by 3, please. And now we have x squared equals 16. Okay, so I got x squared alone. Now what do I need to do? Take the square root of both sides. Don't forget the plus and the minus. Alright, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is x. And we need to have the square root of 16, which we know exactly, which is
4.
4, and I'm going to write plus and negative 4. If you want, instead of writing out 4 and negative 4, you can write plus minus in front, so I know you mean both. Those are both solutions. Good. Let's take a look at the next one. So on number 2, I have x squared plus 4 equals 18. How would I isolate or get x squared alone on this one?
You subtract 4.
Good, subtract 4. So I have x squared equals,
42.
good. And now I take the square root of both sides. If I was doing what I was doing yesterday, do any perfect squares go into 14? No. So I would, if I was simplifying, I would write plus or minus root 14. Now, today, I want to know about what that is because I want to know where the x-intercepts are. So I'm going to write this symbol, which means what?
Not accurate.
Good, approximately. Would you guys tell me what the square root of 14 approximately is? Let's, just for the heck of it, round to 3 decimal places. Notice I'm writing plus or minus. Don't forget that, because both of them would be answers. What do we get? Come on, guys, be an active participant. Get a calculator out. You're going to need it today. 3.74. If I was rounding to the nearest third decimal, that would be a 2, because 1 to the right of that is a 1/6. Alrighty, so make sure in your notes that you have a plus or minus that. Here's what this means, guys. If I were to graph, like last unit we just were graphing some of these parabolas, if I were to graph this, it would have x-intercepts at 4 and negative 4. This one would cross at positive 3.742 and negative if I was graphing that parabola. That's what that means. Alright, let's do the next one. What should I do first to get x squared alone?
I'm at
You can
23.
add 23.
Add 23, good. So 6x squared, what's 49 and 23? Equals 72.
Then divide.
Let's divide by 6. What's x squared equal to? 12. Now,
We wrote it.
take the square root.
Positive and negative.
If I was doing what I was doing yesterday, isn't 12 4 times 3? I'm going to write that below here. If I was simplifying it, I could take the square root of 4 out, couldn't I? So that would be 2 times root 3. Let's approximate that. That's x is about, now you can in your calculator type in 2 times the square root of 3 or the square root of 12. They're the same thing, just different. This is more simplified. What do we get? What is it?
3.464.
And I make sure we put that plus or minus in front there. Okay.